Welcome. I'm Cheryl Mitchell, the president of Teleworking, which is a retreat and learning center located on a sheep farm here in Addison County. So you might be curious about why we're interested in early childhood. Basically, the work of Teleworking is to look at the connections between spirit, nature, and social justice. And in our mind, the ways that our communities support families with young kids is one of the most important social justice issues of our time. And we're also delighted to be doing this show in collaboration with Growing Bright Futures, the show, Building Bright Futures, which is the community group that brings together people who are interested in early childhood issues in our community, and Let's Grow Kids, which is a campaign to help people understand the importance of the early years. And we're totally thrilled today that Ben Wison is our guest, because Ben has seen these issues from so many different perspectives. So welcome, Ben. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm thinking we might start a little bit with your current role, which is as president of the Better Middlebury Partnership. And maybe you could tell us the trajectory that you grew up in this community. You've been here, you've worked in childcare, you've been on the board of childcare programs. How did you end up at the Better Middlebury Partnership?
It's a mouthful. The BMP, actually, I've just finished up my term as president, and now I'm heading community affairs for the BMP. The Better Middlebury Partnership is a business group that's dedicated to making the greater Middlebury area a better place to live, work, and play. And it's more than just focused on business issues. It's really about community building. And so there's a heavy emphasis on that. We do a variety of events in town and try to bring people together about Middlebury and also promote the town. I joined the BMP having grown up here. So this is something where I grew up in Ripton and went to high school in Middlebury, and so this is home. And it's something where I did that and then went away to school and came back and. Now my kids are growing up here, which is nice. So
Why did you choose to come back here to raise your kids?
It had always been the plan.
No question about it.
No question about it. This is, in my mind, the best place to live in the world. And so why would you want to raise kids anywhere else?
Can you talk about why it's the best place to raise kids?
Sure. I mean, I think the kids have time to be kids here. I lived outside Boston. I was formerly an attorney in Boston, working for a large firm, and I lived in a nice suburb. It was a wonderful place, but within about 250 yards of my house, they had 3 SAT prep centers. And so that gives you an idea,
how much pressure the kids are under,
and they're on the rat, they're in the rat race from age 4 on. I mean, it really is unbelievable. And that, that just wasn't my experience growing up here. I grew up in Ripton. I grew up surrounded by woods, and that's a good way to grow up. And and anywhere in this community. I mean, it's an agrarian community. It's pastoral, and it's a really wonderful environment. And the nice thing is with Middlebury is you have the art scene of a small city. And so it really is a wonderful mix of opportunities.
Sort of best of both worlds. Absolutely. In some ways, yeah. Well, one of the things that's been interesting to us about your involvement with Let's Grow Kids is that you're looking at these early childhood issues not just from the perspective of early childhood experiences are important for the child's development, but you're also looking at the economic development implications. And I'm wondering if you could expand on that for us.
Sure. Well, one of the things that I did with the BMP when I was president was really emphasize promotion of Middlebury and also sort of economic development. We worked closely with Middlebury's economic development officer, Jamie Gaucher, and we did a whole series of events, the New Vermont Economy. So we had Matt Dunn come in and talk about issues, Lars Torres and some others. So the economic development side of things, people really don't think about early childhood education in that context, but they should. And they should because right now Vermont has, profound is probably too strong, but we have very serious demographic issues that we have to address. We are an aging state, second only to Maine. And
second only to Maine? I didn't realize it was that serious.
That could be outdated, but I believe we are the 49th oldest state. Now, there's good things about that and bad things, but one of the things that the realities that we're going to have to face is we are going to have a declining working age population. And again, whether rampant growth is really what we should be striving for, which I don't think it is, but it's a challenge that we're going to have to face. And so one of the keys is moving forward, if we are going to support all of the social structures and sort of the social compact that Vermont has, we are going to have a younger workforce, and we're going to have to be able to attract families. And in this day and age, when so many families are two working parents, early childhood education is a must. Not only because if you don't have the family structure in place in Vermont, it's isolating. You need that in order for you to do your job. Right. But then the other thing is the quality early childhood education also is a critical factor in quality of life and why you would move to a certain place. So the schools are obviously an important component. And so that it really is, to me, an essential building block of our economy going forward.
So have you seen, my sense is that the economic base of the state has changed, certainly since I moved here, when it was agricultural and there was a fair amount of manufacturing. And what is it now in this area? Where are people working? And
sure, it has changed dramatically. And in Middlebury specifically, we have lost many manufacturing jobs. I mean, a lot of people don't realize the full scope. I mean, with the '08 crisis and even before that, I think we lost somewhere on the lines of 500 manufacturing jobs, and that's 500 families. I mean, that's Standard Register and Palmer Specialty Filaments and the like. Now we've replaced some of those. We have some really good success stories going on right now. Actually, if you just basically drive out to Exchange Street, you can literally just drive down the street, and almost every business you point to is having a renaissance or is doing wonderfully. So. And that's Woodchuck, Vermont Hard Cider Company. That's Maple Landmark Toys, Vermont Coffee Company, Cabot. I mean, so the food industry and sort of our maker industry has really picked up. The other thing is we are now connected, and this wasn't the case growing up here. It was if people a lot of affiliation with the college and the like, but now you can live here and you can work anywhere. And one of the things I did as president of the Better Middlebury Partnership was to actually create a telecommuter group and to bring these people together. And we don't have everybody in it, but we have over 70 people who live in the Middlebury area and work elsewhere, as far away as Singapore. And so that is something that really only over the last 10 years that has happened. So, and that changes things because it changes the types of businesses you can attract. Basically, if you have a good enough internet connection, you can have any cloud-based business come to Middlebury. And that requires a complete change of thinking about how we're going to operate and how we're going to attract and what types of businesses we want to attract.
So one of the things that people sometimes said about telecommuting was that was going to be the answer to your child care issues because you'd be working from home and it wouldn't be any problem. Your kid would just be there. And what's the reality of that?
Well, I think it's interesting. When you start talking about telecommuting, you're talking about the facts and circumstances of each particular case. You have some people who have extremely high pressure jobs who are telecommuting, and they need a home office and they need quiet, and they are working every bit as hard as they would in the city. Others have more flexibility and affords them an opportunity. But the other, so it's all different. I mean, certain telecommuters are certainly putting kids into childcare. The other thing is, childcare is a wonderful thing for socialization, and there's a whole lot of other benefits associated with it. And so, it may not be full time, but even those families, I think, benefit from having a strong early childhood education system.
Maybe we could step back in time a little bit. After you graduated from college, you were actually a child care provider for a while.
Briefly,
Could you talk about that?
Sure. No, my summer job in college, I would come home each summer and I would work at Otter Creek Child Center. And so I worked with, I started out with the 3-year-olds and worked throughout the center for several years. And then after graduating college, I worked for several months full-time at Otter Creek. And it's kind of funny because I'm feeling old now.
You don't look old.
My kids from those days are now going to college, so it's been kind of fun to watch them
grow up
and go. So, So it was a lot of fun. It also gave me a pretty direct insight into how difficult the field is. There is no doubt it is the most poorly compensated field for how important the job is, and it is something that it's an important job, and it just really isn't appreciated enough. On the other hand, I've also seen the flip side, because now when I came back, I joined the board of Otter Creek when my kids were there, and so I've seen it from running a center. And the reality is, there just isn't, with what you charge, which is a lot for families to cover, there's only so much you can pay. And that's sort of the vice grip that's on the field.
So do you have, from your perspective, you've thought about these things a lot, is there a way to solve this conundrum of the teachers are underpaid but it costs too much for the parents? Where do we go?
Solve maybe, I don't think you're ever going to have a solution, because again, there are a lot of variables there, and it's going to be different at each center. I think from what I've seen, I don't think there's a market-based solution that's going to suddenly fix the conundrum. The reality is that this is just not going to happen. And I base that on the fact that things haven't changed in 20 years since I've been there, and it's the same things going on here. And the Let's Grow Kids certainly has other stories of that, and so it's something where the only solution for improving that mix is going to be either a public-private partnership or activity at the state level.
So activity at the state level doesn't preclude a public-private partnership?
No, I mean, it's interesting. The Better Middlebury Partnership actually has elements of a public-private partnership, and I really think there's benefit to that, because you get some of the stability from government, you get some of the accountability, the transparency. At the same time, you get the creativity of the private marketplace, and you can find out where interests lie and come at it from two different directions. So I'm a big fan of those sorts of partnerships, because I think ultimately they're more effective. I think anytime you build just a bureaucracy, it starts becoming accountable to itself. And at the same time, market forces don't necessarily fix the problem. So I think coming at it from both directions is important.
Are you hopeful that we're going to, probably not in your kids aren't in childcare anymore, but are you hopeful that by the time they're having kids, this will get solved?
Well, I'm not sure there's a solution for it.
Okay, wrong word.
It's one of those things where I think we need to make incremental improvements and keep going until and really I don't see an end point, man. I think this is just something that we need to keep balancing how we address this situation. I can tell you right now that I think it's something we need to fund more. And again, I think there could be benefits to our economy by funding it. So, and again, this sort of goes to the public-private. I think by having a strong early childhood education system, we'll actually be setting up to have a strong economy as well. So I don't see them as mutually exclusive, actually. I think they're fundamental building blocks on each other.
We had talked earlier about sort of good early education being a recruitment tool. Were you seeing that in any of your
Sure. I mean,
experiences?
I multiple times as president of the Better Middlebury Partnership, I received calls from people who were looking to move to the Middlebury area who needed to get childcare to be able to accept a job. Now, fortunately, Middlebury is lucky to have several wonderful centers, and we were able to get them proper placements, and it all worked out. That's not going to happen everywhere, though, and that's something where it is. It's a real issue for today's families, and so it is certainly an issue from recruiting individuals. I would also suggest that it is important to Vermont scale economic development, and let me explain that idea. Certain states, South Carolina is one that immediately comes to mind, has given out hundreds of millions of dollars of tax credits to pull in huge industries. BMW, I believe, got $150 million of tax credit. Vermont's never going to be able to do that. And nor should, we shouldn't anyways, because it hasn't paid off for the state. South Carolina put all that money into that plant, and their childhood poverty rate has gone up. So I don't see that as, it's not an economic panacea that they said it was going to be. But where I think Vermont can actually separate itself from the rest of the country is the quality of life and the lifestyle that we can offer families. And so, I expect that I think we should be recruiting smaller firms that are Vermont scale. They are makers, they are small tech companies, and things that fit in to the existing network. We're not going to tax the infrastructure with huge chemical plants, that's not what we do. But by focusing on smaller companies, the early childhood education becomes a much more prominent role in recruiting them, because a company like BMW has to answer to shareholders, and the bottom line figure, how big the tax credit is going to be the determining factor for whether they come. If you're looking at a small family-owned enterprise and you're trying to recruit them to come to Middlebury or anywhere else in the state, the early childhood education becomes a much bigger and more relevant part of that decision-making process. And so I think the early childhood education, again, is critical for us as we recruit sort of Vermont scale firms to the state.
I'm curious what level of awareness you think most businesses have about this economic development impact of early childhood.
Well, I don't necessarily think, I think it from a sort of a theoretical or from a economic recruitment perspective, it should certainly be on people's radar.
Yeah.
And we certainly, with our website, experiencemidway.com, we have built a website designed to recruit people, and we feature the educational opportunities, the arts opportunities, and why you would want to live in our community. Individual businesses, again, I think it all depends on the facts and circumstances, and frankly, many of them are going to be focused on a lot of their business.
Their business, right?
So I don't think it's front of mind for many, and that's okay. What is really important is the people who are setting the vision for state economic policy need to be aware of it, and they need to be the ones to systematically promote it. Having it done on an individual basis, it would be great if everybody had it front of mind, but I don't think that's realistic, and I don't think it's that important. The key thing is that the key decision makers and the key people who are marketing the state
be aware of it.
Be aware of it, right?
I know that the model that is in a lot of people's minds when they talk about business involvement in childcare is there's a childcare facility in your plant, and it seems like it hasn't worked for many places. Maybe it would work.
It has.
Maybe you have other models in mind.
Yeah, I think that's the model that gets thrown out a lot. I think that works better when you have a large facility, large manufacturing facility. And again, I'm not sure that's consistent with what we really see on the ground in Vermont. I believe Ben and Jerry's actually had a. They did, but I don't think they're doing it now. And that's one of the things where it's very easy to say, oh, the businesses should just take care of it. Well, they're competing in a very difficult marketplace. So it's just a tough issue, and I don't think businesses should be thrown under the bus for not addressing it. It's something where we just need to collectively get all the decision makers to the table, and then let's have a conversation about it.
The Better Middlebury Partnership has brought people together around some of these kinds of discussions in other arenas.
Sure. Well, we've involved the telecommuter group, for instance. We actually had a focus group on what makes it great to live here, and that informed how we present the town to other people, and so I think it's something where the more, particularly in an age of Facebook texts and tweets, I think in a strange way we're more connected than ever, but we're really not that connected. And I think the social media and the like has somewhat cost us in terms of some of the social fabric, and so I think anytime you can bring people together, that's a good thing. And a lot of we have a young professionals group that we had started, and is bringing people together at the end of the day for a beer. That's fine. Economic development through beer, social, and that's social cohesion. So I think there are real benefits anytime you can bring people together. And so I think it's tougher at the statewide level, but it needs to be done. Mm-hmm.
So can we step way back in time? Could
Sure.
you share one or two favorite experiences of yours as a kid growing up in this community, and then one or two favorite experiences for your kids growing up in this community?
Sure. Putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
Let me think. I think the snowball really was a big defining thing for for me growing up. Having grown up in Ripton, being able to, being just 10 minutes down the road, that was something where activities, I spent a lot of time there.
And it really did have that sense of community. I know for me as a parent, you could drop your kids off there and think they were going to be perfectly safe.
Oh yeah,
everybody knew everybody.
We knew everybody,
else,
and yeah, from about age 7 or 8 on, I was there every weekend. Right. So, the ball was certainly something I really enjoyed, and I think just being outside. I think again, it was really enlightening to live outside of Boston in a suburb. I hadn't been lived in Boston, lived in Chicago, but I'd been right in the city, and I was young and really sort of focused on the things that 20-something would be doing in a large city. Living in the suburbs, seeing how people in the suburbs live, it completely reaffirmed my decision to move back, and it also underscored what a great childhood I had growing up here. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that for me, for my kids, the opportunities.
We should say. Can you just say that you've got?
I have a 6 and an 8-year-old, and the opportunities culturally, sports, it's unbelievable. The new music school, the Middlebury Community Music Center.
Oh, is that the one that Sadie started?
Yep,
yeah.
It is fantastic, both kids are taking instruments there. I actually have tried banjo. I'm not very good, but I've tried it,
good for you.
Which is good. Yeah. But that's something that has been wonderful. And then just all the other sports and activities. Both my kids are into baseball and hockey and skiing, and it's the variety of opportunities you have here just simply doesn't exist, I don't think, in suburbs, because you don't have the outside opportunities, the hiking where it's just out your door and you're in the woods. So it's something that we have that's incredibly special. And again, from an economic development perspective, nobody else has this in the same way that we do.
And how about the support that you've gotten as a parent? Is there anything special about this community? Have people reached out to you as parents, or?
Well, I think just the nature of living in a small town and the benefit of that. You know everybody, and so it's. And it's funny. I will be out with my kids, and they'll say hi to people that I haven't
right.
met. And
but the kids help us make connections
absolutely,
as well as
absolutely. And I think the social sort of fabric of living in a small town, it really can't be beat. It is something that I treasure, and my kids may not have the awareness of it yet, but they know it's special too.
So they'll probably move away and come back also? Do you anticipate? Who knows?
It wouldn't shock me. Ultimately that'll be each one of their decisions. But but for me, I knew early on that I always wanted to come back, and and a lot of my friends from high school have either come back or would like to come back. So it's a matter of figuring out, which again underscores why the economic development.
Right. Yeah.
For too long the state has really been passive on economic development issues, and there's a huge cadre of people who would come back if the opportunities were there, and so it's really incumbent on us to focus on it and make it a priority. I think it often gets lost in the shuffle.
You've just finished up your 3 years as president,
Yep.
and you're moving into a new role. Could you explain what that new role will be?
Sure. I'm staying on the board and assisting our current president, Lindsay Wing, who's going to do a great job, already is. But I'm staying active with the community affairs piece, and so that.
And what will that mean?
Well, that means staying involved with economic development issues. It means staying involved in just general town issues, and again, sort of bringing people together, making people aware of certain issues, and trying to advocate for the town and for the business community. So. Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we're running out of time, and I just thought I would ask: is there something that you would like to tell people that I forgot to ask you?
No, I think you've hit it. Again, the early childhood education. Again, it gets talked mainly about how wonderful it is for the kid.
For the kid, right?
Yes, that is all true. But I think again, by focusing on the economic development, I think it's an aspect that people really don't think about, and I think they should. I think it merits attention.
You're also focusing
So-
on something. I mean, I think we've all read the Heckman, the Nobel laureate in economics, who said, "Invest in the young." That's the payoff. But he's often linked that payoff to the kids will be less likely to get in trouble, more likely to go to school. You're talking about a whole different level of economic development. That it's really good for the community, good for businesses.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
and again, there's a balance to be struck, and that's something that will always be negotiated and worked on with the government, with the business community, with parents. But we need to have a more deliberate approach, and that's again the Let's Grow Kids, I think, is helping to contribute to that approach. So yeah, it's
Well,
good.
I'm so thrilled and grateful that somebody like you was involved in this. It
So,
just
thank you.
It's
Yeah.
very hope inspiring.
So well, it's a
Yes.
great place, and I think we just all need to be active in it.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank all of you for watching the show today. In a few minutes, you'll see the contact information for the Better Middlebury Partnership.
It is a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. And Ben has said, please do get in touch with him. And we'd also like to thank Middlebury Community Television. They put these shows on. Anybody who has information that they'd like to get out to the public, they can help you do it. They're fantastic. They're amazingly helpful. And we hope that you'll watch the next show as well. Thanks for being with us today. Bye.